She was 16, weighed 45 kilos, wore glasses. No one asked why she woke up early every morning, why her hands were calloused, until that man climbed through the kitchen window. Her name was Emma Thompson. She lived in one of those quiet three-story white houses in Richmond, Vancouver. From the outside, she looked like an ordinary high school student. Thick-framed glasses, long straight hair, and clothes that always seemed a bit too big. One of those types who tried not to draw attention. But Emma had a secret. Every morning at 5:30, the alarm would ring. While her family slept, she'd quietly get up and go down to the small converted garage in the backyard. That place was a world no one knew about. Old photos hung on the walls, her father in military uniform, with his medals. In the corner was Emma's real life, punching bag, weights, gymnastics bar. And there was this writing hanging on the wall. Being strong doesn't mean looking strong. At school, Emma was different. She'd read books during breaks, sitting quietly in her corner. In gym class, she always stayed behind, finishing last in runs. Her teachers described her as gentle, calm. Her classmates, however, "Is Emma sitting alone again? Look how she's carrying that huge book. I bet she'd fly away if the wind blew." They'd laugh. Emma would just smile and say nothing. But at home, she was different. Her father, Colonel Michael Thompson, was an experienced officer retired from NATO duties. When Emma was little, he'd call her Princess. But as Emma grew up and became acquainted with the dangers of the outside world, her father's approach changed. "Emma," he'd say during dinner, "this world isn't always fair. You must be strong. But real strength isn't in showing off. It emerges when needed." Emma's hands weren't calloused for nothing. She trained for 2 hours every morning. Boxing, jiu-jitsu, Krav Maga. Her father trained her, but it wasn't just physical. Mental preparation, situation assessment, quick decision-making. "If an attacker underestimates you," her father would say, "that becomes your greatest advantage. Never reveal your true strength until that moment comes." Emma took these lessons seriously because her father was right. The world was dangerous, and Emma knew her family, her loved ones, needed protection. It was a warm May night in Richmond. Emma was doing her math homework in her upstairs room. Her mother, Sarah, was downstairs watching TV. Her father was on a business trip, a week-long seminar in Toronto. Emma took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. The clock showed 11:30 p.m. She was about to finish her homework and go to bed when a strange sound came from downstairs. The sound of breaking glass. Emma froze. She pressed her ear to the wall. Silence. Then, footsteps. Heavy, slow steps. Her heart raced. She wanted to go downstairs to check on her mother, but her father had trained her. First, listen. Assess, then act. Emma quietly opened her door. Sounds were coming from downstairs, but no sound from her mother. This was a bad sign. She quickly opened the small closet in the corner of her room. Inside was the emergency bag she kept for her father. She took out the small flashlight and the emergency whistle her father had given her. But more importantly, she visualized in her mind the countless simulations she'd done with her father. Escape routes, defense points, communication methods. Most importantly, counterattack strategies. When Emma reached the top of the stairs, she saw him, a hooded, large-built man in black. He was moving from the kitchen to the living room. He had a bag in his hand, probably collecting valuables. But worse, her mother was sitting in the corner armchair, trembling with fear. "Where's the money?" the man was saying, threat in his voice. "Where's the safe?" "Please," her mother was pleading, "there's not much money. My daughter is upstairs. Don't do anything to her." Emma's blood ran cold. The man was threatening her mother. And worse, he'd noticed Emma too. In this situation, there were two options: hide or take action. Emma remembered her father's words. Fear is normal, but don't let fear paralyze you. Turn fear into power. Emma retreated. She returned to her room and quickly prepared. Removed her glasses, they'd be a hindrance in a fight. Put her hair in a tight bun, changed into clothes she could move freely in. Most importantly, shifted her mind into combat mode. Her father had trained her. The surprise factor is your greatest advantage. If your opponent underestimates you, use it. Emma would use the man's prejudices to her advantage. A 16-year-old, 45-kilo girl with glasses. No one would see her as a threat. Emma quietly went down the stairs. The man was still interrogating her mother, his back turned to her. Perfect position. Emma's mind flashed through the training sessions with her father. Silence is your weapon. Target vital points. Speed and surprise are more important than... "Mom!" Emma shouted, deliberately, to draw the man's attention. The man turned. When he saw Emma, a mocking smile spread across his face. "Ah, the little princess is awake," he said dismissively. "Come here, you two, together with your mother." That's when Emma struck. She grabbed the cast-iron pan and reached the man in 3 steps. The man hadn't calculated that Emma could move so fast. Emma hit the man's knee squarely with the pan. The man screamed in pain and fell to the ground. But Emma didn't stop. Her father had taught her. Once you start an attack, don't stop until you finish. Don't give the other side a chance to recover. While the man was writhing on the ground, Emma made her second move. She hit the man's wrist with the pan, making him drop the knife in his hand. "You little—" The man started shouting when Emma calmly said, "You're wrong. I'm not little." The man tried to get up, but Emma was ready. Using a technique she learned from jiu-jitsu training, she twisted the man's arm and pinned him to the ground again. "Mom, call the police!" she shouted. Her mother was in shock. She couldn't believe her daughter had neutralized the attacker so effectively. "Emma, you... how... We'll talk later, Mom." "Call the police now." The man tried to push Emma away and break free. He was strong, but Emma knew the strategy. Instead of meeting force with force, she used the man's strength against him. When the man pulled himself, Emma pushed in that direction, unbalancing him. Then she quickly withdrew and kicked the man's leg, exactly at the points her father had shown her. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" the man shouted. Emma replied calmly, "Protecting my family." The man began to realize that Emma wasn't afraid of him. This made him even angrier, but also confused him. "You're just a child," he shouted. Emma looked at him. There was no fear in her eyes, just cold determination. "Yes," Emma said, "I'm just a child. But you're just an attacker, and right now it's clear which one of us is superior." These words made the man even more furious. But Emma had learned psychological defense well, making your enemy angry, making them act thoughtlessly. The man angrily lunged at Emma, but this was what Emma expected. Angry people became predictable. Emma dodged to the side, using the man's momentum to crash him into the sharp furniture in the corner of the wall. The man hit his head and fell to the ground, dazed. Emma immediately got on top of the man, twisted his arm behind his back, and locked it. "Don't move," she said in a calm but determined voice. "We'll stay like this until the police arrive." 10 minutes later, police sirens were heard. Emma was still keeping the man under control. The man couldn't get over the shock. He couldn't digest being beaten by a 45-kilo girl. When the police entered, the scene they saw was surprising. A tiny girl had neutralized an attacker twice her size on the ground. "Miss," said the police officer, "how did you manage this?" Emma stood up, fixing a strand of hair that had fallen from her hair. "I was prepared," she said simply. After the police took the attacker away, Mother Sarah turned to Emma. Emma, I didn't know. When did you learn these things? Emma sat down, realizing it was time to be completely honest with her mother for the first time. Dad taught me, Mom. For years. I train every morning. Because Dad knew this world won't always be safe. And I knew, too, that I might need to protect you. The next morning, her father had returned urgently. Emma met him at the door. Colonel Michael Thompson looked at his daughter, no longer looking at her like before. He now saw her not as his little princess, but as a real warrior. I'm proud, he said simply, but I'm not surprised. You were ready. Emma smiled. Dad, you always said real strength emerges when needed, and you proved it. When she returned to school on Monday, everything had changed for Emma. The news had spread. That quiet, introverted, weak girl had defeated an attacker overnight. Her classmates now looked at her differently. Her teachers respected her. But Emma hadn't changed. She still read books, sat quietly during breaks. Because Emma had learned a real secret. Real strength isn't shown. Real strength emerges when needed. That evening, walking home, Emma was walking down the same street. But now she felt different. Not herself. She saw the world differently. Because now she knew she had to always be prepared. But that didn't mean she had to be afraid. It just meant she had to be strong. And Emma was strong. She always was. Everyone just didn't want to see it. Until that night. That night, a 16-year-old, 45-kilo girl with glasses taught everyone this. Real strength isn't measured by appearance, but by the determination of the heart. And sometimes the smallest package holds the biggest surprise. Months later, Emma still trains every morning, still reads books,